Order, councillors.
This is the ordinary meeting of Blue Mountain City Council held on 31st of March 2026 in the council chambers in Katoomba. Good evening, councillors, staff and members of the public. Welcome to this meeting. Registrations to speak have been received for tonight, so the council meeting, the start of it, will be suspended to allow for the public forum to occur and for questions to be asked by those speakers. The Mayor will advise when this is to occur. This meeting is being recorded and the recording will be available on the Council's website for 12 months after the upload date. This meeting is also being live streamed, as all statements made at this meeting will be recorded. Your image and voice may be recognised and other people may be aware that you've attended the meeting. Your continued attendance at the meeting after this statement is made is taken as your consent for your voice being recorded. The Council is not responsible for the statements of any individual made during the meeting, and any defamatory statements or any statements which include personal or confidential information are the sole responsibility of the individual who makes them. The Council's Code of Meeting Practice sets standards of conduct for a Council meeting, and if any person in attendance at the meeting acts in a disorderly manner, or if a person makes defamatory or unacceptable comments, then the meeting may be interrupted by the Mayor and appropriate action taken. This meeting, again, must not be recorded by any party other than the Council. And lastly, should the Council chambers need to be vacated for any reason, I'd really appreciate it if you'd follow the directions of staff. I now ask, could staff and councillors please stand for the Mayor?
Good evening, councillors, staff and members of the public. The City of Blue Mountains is located within the country of the Darug and Gundungurra peoples. Blue Mountain City Council recognises that Darug and Gundungurra traditional owners have a continuous and deep connection to their country, and that this is of great cultural significance to Aboriginal people both locally and in the region. For Darug and the Gundungurra people, Nura takes in everything within the physical, cultural and spiritual landscape. Landforms, waters, air, trees, rocks, plants, animals, foods, medicines, minerals, stories and special places. It includes cultural practice, kinship, knowledge, songs, stories and art, as well as spiritual beings and people, past, present and future. Blue Mountain City Council pays respect to the elders, past and present, while recognising the strength, capacity and resilience of past and present Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the Blue Mountains region. Please be seated. Before I come to apologies, I'll have moved, please, a suspension of standing orders so we may have a public forum. Let's move Councillor Miles, second Councillor Buckham. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried unanimously. We have 3 registered speakers. Keith Brister, you're first. Keith, you have 2 items. What I'm going to do is get you to do 3 minutes on one and 3 minutes on the other straight away, so you have to go back and forward between the podium and your seat. So we'll get you to do both. So first, I'll give you, if you come forward to the microphone there, we'll give you 3 minutes on item 8, and then I'll take you for 3 minutes on item 9. So Keith Brister, everyone, welcome Keith, and Keith, the floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Keith Brister and I live in Blackheath. I'm representing Blue Mountains Weed Action and I'm speaking in support of item 8. First, I would like to express our appreciation for the cooperative and constructive way in which council staff have dealt with us and our submission to the draft policy. This has resulted in several positive changes to the draft, which I will discuss. The most significant is the formation of the Blue Mountains Stakeholder Engagement Group. This will provide a formal mechanism to bring the community, council and key land managers together to collaborate in support of BMCC weed management strategy. Hopefully this will also encourage all public land managers to be committed to effective weed control across their land holdings. The community, as well as providing a valuable source of innovative ideas, can effectively advocate to all levels of government. In all discussions, resource limitations are always an issue. We've recently sent the General Manager a submission on internal council resourcing of weed management. We look forward to developing with the stakeholder group comprehensive proposals for external funding appropriate to our location within the World Heritage Area, which we can present to government. The stakeholder group and its subgroups will also provide the opportunity for further discussion of matters raised during recent consultations, such as those relating to compliance. Another important addition to the policy is Appendix 6, Community Suggested Future Opportunities, which identifies opportunities which cannot be funded within the proposed strategy. It's important to be ambitious, and if we are to ask for more funding, we need to know what will be funded. The list will also provide a resource to the stakeholder group. Our vision is for weed management in the Blue Mountains to be an exemplar for weed management in the state. With the planned changes to the weed management strategy, supported by a stakeholder engagement group, and the securing of new funds, we think this goal can be achieved. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Keith. If you remain there, any questions for Keith? All right, Keith, I'll ask you now to address us on item 9.
Okay, well, hello again. So you know my name, and I live in Blackheath. This time I'm speaking, I'm representing Govetts Lip Catchment Group as coordinator, and I'm speaking in support of item 9. Our main interest is encroachment on bushland areas. First, I would like to commend Council on producing a concise but comprehensive policy with prioritisation criteria. However, there are a number of issues which concern us. The first of these is the lack of allocated funding. Clearly, for long-standing, extensive encroachment, there will be significant remediation costs. This will either be significant management costs to ensure the encroacher does the work, or a direct cost to council to do the work itself. The encroachment I'm most familiar with in Blackheath is on a council reserve, which includes part of a carport, a garden shed, a white gravel driveway, established large plants, a wood heap and garden furniture. Failure to deal with encroachment promptly due to lack of funding seems to me inviting failure of the policy. We note that Council's response to community feedback about funding is to say it's not relevant to the policy, but will be part of the procedures. We hope the need for allocated funding will be considered in current budget discussions. The failure to deal with encroachment on an active bushcare site for over 40 years, that's since the property was built, is also disrespectful of the work by a succession of bushcare volunteers. Community feedback has requested that the encroachment on bushcare sites be prioritised, but this is only noted in Council's response in the business paper. The other thing I might say about that bushcare site, it's the oldest active site in the Blue Mountains. It was started by my mother in 1987, and I've been working there 16 years. We recognise that this policy will be controversial in some sectors of the community. To combat this, we feel Council should be forthright about the need for and benefits of the policy to the whole community. This requires an extensive education program, which will also need funding. A particular aspect of this is nature strips. Most of us have one, and Council relies on our goodwill to maintain them. We feel that much more detail is required in the policy to identify and justify what is and what is not permitted on nature strips. Without this, there are likely to be accusations of erratic enforcement and a potential loss of public goodwill. To conclude, we're very pleased that the policy has now been developed, but we feel there are significant shortcomings which need to be remedied. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Keith? There being none, Keith, thank you so much for your submissions tonight. The next is Lyndall Sullivan, who will address us on item number 9.
Lyndall Sullivan's my name. I live in Katoomba, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Blue Mountains Conservation Society tonight. And I do apologise this last minute suggested change, but some lives can be chaotic at times. Anyway, so firstly, we're really pleased to see the encroachment policy, finally, I might say, after the society I know has been involved with it for over 20 years, trying to get something happening, as has the Centennial Park Bushcare Group. Now, we're really pleased that in our submission, we made a number of points, and one of the points we're pleased to see is in there, which is expanding what environmental impacts are being looked at. So not only the immediate direct adjacent ones, but broader, which is pretty obvious. So that was good to see that. However, we're extremely disappointed that the community investment in looking after the land has not been recognised at all. It's in fact, the suggestion listed here on page 55 is that bushland, which obviously a number of submitters said, bushland reserves with a history of bush care involvement should attract higher priority. That was noted. Now, that's pretty dismissive, I think. But the work that's done by bush care volunteers is valuable, and it should be seen as a value, and it should be one of the considerations. We would like to see it being a consideration under the high priority category, and it recognised there under one of the social values. And I think for bush care volunteers would feel much more valued by being taken seriously in this very tangible way than being offered trinkets. Thank you.
Any questions for Lyndall? No? Okay, thank you. Lyndall, you circulated a document, a small document, which the CEO and I have seen. Unfortunately, it's too late for us to incorporate it as a resolution, but I can help you. The CEO is happy to publicly commit to that issue being picked up in later revisions of the document. That's right, isn't it, CEO? Yes. Yeah. So CEO makes that commitment on the public record, so it'll be picked up. Yeah. Now, I think you've left a copy of the document with... It's hardly a document. No, it's a document. I'd just ask the Deputy Mayor at the end of the meeting to give that to the CEO, if you would. Thank you. Thank you, Lyndall, and thank you for your submission. Thank you to all three speeches by two people tonight. Those were all thoughtful submissions, and we respect them very much, and we are grateful to you for coming and taking part. Thank you so much. All right, we have a motion to resume standing orders. Moved Councillor Miles, seconded Councillor Fell. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. We are back in the main part of the meeting. Executive Officer, do I need any further resolutions? Yeah, no, apart from that, just in relation to the suspension, I'm good? Okay, thank you. All right, apologies from Councillor Van Opdorp. There are no other apologies. It's moved Councillor Buckham, seconded Councillor Fisher, that we accept those apologies. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. Minutes of the meeting held 24 February 2026. It's moved Councillor Fell, seconded Councillor West. They be noted as a true record. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations to make tonight? None? Okay, cool. Mayoral minute number 1, standing in my name, is seconded by Councillor Suzanne Jamieson, and I will address you on the matter. This relates, councillors, to a significant development proposal for 142 to 150 Narrowneck Road in Katoomba. This mayoral minute maintains our objection to that proposition, which, as I said in the media and I say tonight, and I know I'm echoing the words of our own director in this regard, this is probably the worst we've seen in terms of proposals. Not only is it inappropriate for the place it's in, but were it to be built in some of the urban areas of Sydney, the shadowing effects contained within it would render it inappropriate there. It is just a shocker. It's an inappropriate development. What we need to do is to formalise our opposition in the present process that's underway to assess the development. So we acknowledge a bunch of significant concerns there. Building height, density, would double council's local planning controls, greater than any development in the Katoomba town centre. We note that the approval by the Minister to proceed with the proposal estates significant development, despite at the time of making his decision, the site being bushfire prone land had to be acknowledged as well. Now, some will say to you the site's no longer bushfire prone. That was changed, interestingly, just after this proposal went in. At the time the proposal was assessed by the minister, it was bushfire prone land. Mysteriously, it ceased to be after that, but at the time that he assessed it, he would have known it was. We also note the potential significant adverse environmental impacts on the site itself, the downstream environment, through obviously the removal of vegetation, of stormwater impacts, and the lack of acknowledgement that the site is located actually within the Sydney drinking water catchment. There are significant visual impacts. There's no high part of Katoomba that you could go to where you wouldn't see this thing blighting the landscape. And there is an absolute lack of engagement with our community. I think they said they got 6 submissions on it. That's basically because they didn't really make it clear that there was a consultation process going on. So we need to reiterate our opposition to this proposal, not just as an objection. It's not an objection to the need for housing, not at all. But it's about the massive bulk and scale and environmental impacts of this particular proposal. So the council needs, I think, to endorse a process that's enacted once public exhibition of the state significant proposal is commenced by the state government that includes the holding of a public meeting or public information session to provide our community with information on the proposal and the process by which they can make a submission. Because if we don't do that, this authority will be very happy for it to slide through secretly. So let's hide that. Let's not allow that to happen. Let's call this out publicly and put a spotlight on it so our community can actually have a say, which they were denied in the first round. We want to do a letterbox drop within the proximity of Narrow Neck, advising of the state government's public exhibition so people know. And I want you as a council to endorse our CEO or her delegate to lodge a submission on the proposal, as the 14-day extension period will not allow a council resolution at that time. Now, the CEO has undertaken, as has the director, to consult with me on your behalf about that proposal, but it won't be possible because of the timing to bring it to a council meeting. And the council will want you to acknowledge and resolve, continue to advocate on behalf of our community for the refusal of this disgraceful proposal, inappropriate proposal by the state government. Councillor Jamieson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually rise as one of the Ward 1 councillors. There is nothing good I can say about this proposed development. It is just a failure on every front. And certainly, as the motion makes clear, we're not against more housing. We must have more housing. It's one of the basic human rights, but this ain't it. So we've got to be ready as a community to take this on and be part of this process, because it is, as the Mayor said, a complete disgrace.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Any further remarks? Councillor Hua.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to ask a question, if I might.
Yep.
The CEO, to the relevant director.
Well, you through me.
Through you, yes.
Yep.
Yeah, look, I just would like to ask whether staff know whether or whether it is known whether the application has been presented to the Department of Planning and when it may be put on exhibition.
Yep. CEO, through you to the director.
Mr. Langford?
Through the CEO, yes, council's been advised that the application has been lodged with the department. We expect it to be exhibited soon. The department are unwilling or unable to provide dates for council when it'll be exhibited, although it's most likely to be within the next 2 weeks.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Anything further? One matter before us. I'll put it. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried unanimously, and I thank you. Mayoral minute number 2, standing in my name, is seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Councillors, it's with a great deal of sadness that I want to inform the council and our community of the passing of a really special person, Mr. David Colby, who passed away a few weeks ago at the age of 90. I think most of us around this table know David Colby. Mr. Colby was a deeply valued and long-serving volunteer whose contributions to the Blue Mountains were significant and deeply enduring. He was one of the inaugural volunteers at the Blue Mountains Cultural Centre. He joined the team on its opening day in 2012 and remained a dedicated and appreciated presence for more than a decade. Through his support of exhibitions, his warm engagement with visitors, and his steadfast advocacy for arts, particularly in the Blue Mountains, David Colby played an important role in fostering a vibrant cultural life in our city. In 2017, he further demonstrated his commitment to local artists by commissioning a new work by Wentworth Falls artist James Blackwell for the Cultural Centre's collection. David was dedicated to the highest degree to culture, and that dedication was matched by his lifelong passion for environmental stewardship. He volunteered with Bush Care for more than 30 years. He coordinated major local bush care groups and contributed respected botanical research on flora in the Blue Mountains. Just a few weeks ago, Dave and his partner, Ray Druitt, were formally acknowledged for their extraordinary and long-standing service to bush care, a commitment that has strengthened our natural environment and inspired countless others. Volunteers like David are at the heart of our city's environmental and cultural vitality. His generosity, his personal advocacy, his quiet leadership have left a profound and lasting legacy on our community and our environment. Those of us who knew him, and I think it's most of us in this room, will deeply miss him, and he'll be deeply missed by his family, his friends, his fellow volunteers, and our staff who had the privilege of working alongside him. So on behalf of the people of the City of Blue Mountains, I want to extend our sincere condolences to his loved ones and record formally our gratitude as the governing body of the City of Blue Mountains for the remarkable service of this outstanding man. Does the seconder wish to speak, or has it been said? Yes, you wish to speak? Councillor Hollywood has the call.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will just keep it very brief, but I just want to say, as a councillor, you get to meet and work with people over many years. And David Colby and Ray Druitt were two of those peoples who I really met by virtue of my work as a councillor, and shared a lot with both of them because they were both very active members of the Wentworth Falls Lake Bush Care group, and so were very passionate about the upgrades. They welcomed the upgrades and realised that they were needed, but they also kept a very close eye on how we went about that. So I really will, like others that have passed away that I've known through Bush Care, I think we will all miss the presence of David Colby at the Bush Care picnics and at other Bush Care events. And my heart goes out to Ray Druitt, who has lost a life partner. So, yeah, I'm very pleased that Council has brought this forward to acknowledge the contribution that David Colby has made to our community.
Thanks, Romola. Thanks, Councillor Hollywood. Anything further? All right, there's one matter before us. What I plan to do is put it, and then I think we'll rise for a minute. So I'll put it, all those in favour, against, declare it carried unanimously, and I'll ask councillors and staff and community to rise for 1 minute. Thank you. Please be seated. Mayoral minute number 3, standing my name, is seconded by Councillor Jamieson. Councillors, you'll see the mayoral minute on the screen. It relates to the closure of the Victoria Pass. There are a few things that I think we need to do. Firstly, we note the latest update from the Minister is that the pass will be closed between Mount Victoria and Hartley for at least 3 months. Keywords being at least. The Council notes that this will have significant impact on businesses in the Upper Mountains with a reduction of tourists in those towns, and that we note the redirection of traffic from the Great Western Highway is likely to result in significantly increased wear and tear on council infrastructure as a result, and funding will be required from the state government for reparations. Just pause on that point. The $50 million announcement the other day, I noticed, didn't include any Blue Mountains roads. As I understand it, that money all went to roads in Lithgow. I could be wrong, but I didn't see any roads in our city included in that. I'm right about that? I am. So there's $50 million announced. We didn't get any of it. So I want us to write to John Graham, Minister for Transport, with a copy to our local member Trish Doyle, requesting that financial support for businesses in areas impacted by the closure of the Great Western Highway, principally Mount Victoria and Blackheath, receive assistance, financial support specifically from the government, and that the problem section of the Great Western Highway be declared an emergency, and for the state government to allocate resources accordingly. And I think this is actually happening at this point, but I think it's appropriate, with the task force have announced, for us to continue to press that point. And that the state government needs to provide a plan for a state-led recovery process, just like we would have after a bushfire. A proper, formal, state-led recovery process. The New South Wales government made the decision, obviously rightly, to close the Great Western Highway in both directions. As I say, they've advised that it will be at least a 3-month closure. I was on site with the Premier, the local member, and my colleague Mayor from Lithgow, and my observations on that day, where we were shown core samples, are that I think 3 months would be very ambitious to get it open again. We cannot underestimate that the Great Western Highway is the backbone for transport within and through the Blue Mountains, and this issue is going to impact our communities. It's already impacting school kids coming from the Lithgow area up to Blue Mountain schools, but it is impacting local businesses due to a reduction in tourists and residents, due to alternative transport options being put in place that are, let's face it, suboptimal. I don't want to see local businesses in those Upper Mountains towns close, because the downstream effects are that affects the community itself. So financial support hasn't been forthcoming yet. It hasn't been ruled out. We need to get behind that. So, councillors, I would ask you to support my mayoral minute. This is a significant issue for the Blue Mountains, and it is one that I think will only get more significant. Councillor Jamieson has the call.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's a very serious matter, and the state government is taking it very seriously. As a Ward 1 councillor, I met with Minister Saffin and the local state member, Trish Doyle, last week in Mount Victoria, and they were just about setting up the task force that our CEO currently sits on. I think they're meeting twice a week, so it's hot and heavy, and you just stretch 24 hours into 30 hours a day. I think CEO, it's a very serious issue, and there's been a lot of misreporting. The ABC for at least the first week and a half was reporting that you really couldn't even get to Mount Victoria, so people have been avoiding there, and there's been cancellations, of course, for accommodation up there and other dinners and things that are going on. But one of the things that really struck me while I was sitting there with the Minister and the local member and many of the business leaders in the Upper Mountains was the number of very large double trucks that are using the road. As a slightly older person, I had trouble getting out of my car and just getting across the road there in Station Street to the Victoria and Albert where we were meeting with the minister. It was really difficult. And I'm sure there's going to be more outcomes there, but we need to encourage them and make sure that they know we're watching.
Can I just note for that the resolution with the concurrence of the seconder shall include Jenny Atchison, Minister Atchison, and also Minister Saffin. So we've got Minister Graham, we've got the member for Blue Mountains. We need to add Ministers Atchison and Saffin to that mail list as well. Thank you. All right. Anyone else wish to speak on this Merrill Minute? There being no one, I'll put it. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. I thank you all for your support. What was that, Councillor Hua? Don't want an early mark? Just joking. All right, so we'll now move around the table for items councillors wish to withdraw. I'll go to Labor's whip. Councillor Fell, any items you wish to pull out?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to pull out items 5, 15 and 16.
Thank you, so noted. Councillor Fisher, Councillor Barkham, Councillor Miles, Councillor Rodrigo, Councillor West, Councillor Hollywood, Councillor Hua. Item 8. Okay. Councillor Redshaw. 14. Yes. Okay, thank you. Councillor Jamieson. Thank you. All right, so mark your business papers accordingly, councillors, and note this includes a confidential paper as well, which I'll take as passed. There's item 4, item 6, item 7, item 9, item 10, item 11, item 12, item 13. Have a resolution, and item 17. I'll have a resolution by Councillor Miles, seconded Councillor Rodrigo. We pass those items in globo. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. Item number 5, Councillor Fell, I'll come to you. You wish to, first I'll put the item and then I'll come to you for appropriate nomination. So it's moved, Councillor Barkham, seconded Councillor Rodrigo, the resolution as recommended. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. Councillor Fell, you have some nominations.
I do, Mr Mayor. I'd like to nominate Councillor Romola Hollywood as the voting delegate to attend the conference, and yourself, Mayor Mark Greenhill, for the minutes, as alternate delegate.
Yes, all right. That's seconded Councillor Miles. Just for the staff to note, I would only go in the event that Councillor Hollywood had a work commitment or illness, so it would still only be one delegate going. I won't be going as alternate if she goes. Right, okay, so that's moved. Councillors Fell and Miles. Any opposition? Any alternates? This will be good. Councillor Redshaw.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Hoare.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Hoare. Well, we'll have a show of hands. You want to go as a delegate or alternate? I'll go as a delegate. All right. Right, I think... All right, we'll have 2 votes then. We'll have 2 votes then. All those who would prefer Councillor Hollywood to be the delegate. All those who prefer Councillor Hoare. Councillor Hollywood will go. All those who would prefer myself as the alternate. All those who would prefer Councillor Hoare. And I will be going. All right, so both votes were recorded 9 votes to 2. And Councillor Hollywood, I'll see you after the meeting. All right, so, all right, that brings us now to item number 8. Councillor Hua, did you wish to move something?
Yes, we've got to move Yeah, you're very happy to move the report.
The report is moved, Councillor Hoare, seconded Councillor Fisher. Councillor Hoare.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I won't take up a lot of time here, but I do wish to place on the record what a tremendous job has been done by the staff and the community on the draft weed management strategy, and it's been really wonderful to see such a high level of constructive engagement. We are very, very supportive of the proposals for a Blue Mountain stakeholder engagement to be formed, providing a formal mechanism for the Community Council and key land managers to collaborate together in support of the BMCC weed management strategy, which we do hope will be seen in time as an exemplary approach to weed management in our very special LGO, and hopefully one that other councils will be able to learn from. I do want to flag, though, some of the focus items that the new stakeholder engagement group will need to grapple with, including the transport corridor, the trains and the highway, which provide a very serious vector for the spread of weeds throughout the LGA, in addition to weeds on large private properties. So while we have had a bit of action on these issues in the last couple of years, there's still considerable work required to bring weed control up to an acceptable standard in these areas. I'm sure everyone working on these issues is very well aware, but the need for further resources to be able to bring these weeds issues under control is dire. To that end, Blue Mountains wish to acknowledge the work that Blue Mountains Weed Action intends to do with council staff to identify opportunities to advocate for additional funding from external sources to support the implementation of the council's weed management strategy. Not only identifying work that can be taken within existing resources, but we want to welcome the level of ambition that the strategy sets to identify work that could be taken if there was the resources available to fund it. So in conclusion, I just wish to acknowledge that the Blue Mountains Weed Management Strategy does represent an opportunity to shift the way weeds are managed in the LGA, and again, as I say, that I look forward to, in time, our council being seen as an exemplar in the management of weeds. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hoare. Second who wish to speak? Councillor Fisher? No? Anyone else wish to speak? One matter before us. I'll put it all those in favour. Against, declare it carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Submission to Sydney Central West White Paper, pulled out by you, Councillor Redshaw. Do you wish to move the recommendations in the business paper? Okay. Moved, Councillor Redshaw. Seconded, Councillor West. Councillor Redshaw has the call.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just want to acknowledge the staff for this submission as well, given we, they've pointed out the biodiversity, the environmental consequences, the impact of transport on our villages, which are effectively split in half by the highway as it exists, and the potential for increasing truck movements, which is huge, and the need to increase the potential for freight to be taken by rail, which I think, the Mayor and many of us have been advocating for some time, that be a major focus of attention, that freight goes to rail, particularly when we're being faced with the potential of Sydney's waste being taken west to be burnt, which is a huge problem, and would increase the traffic across the mountains enormously. And given the problems that we have with an aged infrastructure, with not a lot of foresight and planning for how that can be fit for the future. And it does concern me, however, that the idea of a tunnel from the upper mountains to Hartley has huge environmental consequences, and unfortunately, the highway itself and changes to it are going to have environmental consequences, but we do want to limit those as much as possible. I admire the request for a tunnel under the mountains, which would be excellent. Perhaps we could get the Chinese to pay for that, since we'll be freighting a lot of fresh goods for them. So thank you to the staff for this submission and for its speaking very well for our heritage area. Thanks.
And I'll just note the comment about the Chinese paying for it was probably equipped, it's certainly not Blue Mountain City Council's position, the Chinese government should pay for it. Thank you. There's the second of Councillor West wish to speak. Any further speakers? One matter before us. I'll put it. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. Item number 15. Now, I've got a notice of motion by Councillor Redshaw, which has moved Councillor Redshaw. Is it seconded by Councillor Hoare? I also have an amendment by Councillor Rodrigo. Before I take Councillor Redshaw and Councillor Hoare speaking to that motion, I just want to show them the amendment by Councillor Rodrigo, which will be seconded by Councillor Miles. Should Councillors Redshaw and Hoare be content to take that on board, it'll become their motion. Should they not, then I'll put the notice of motion first and the amended motion second. So just ask, without comment, just ask, without debate, just ask Councillor Redshaw and Councillor Hoare, are you content with the amendment? If not, we'll look at your motion.
I am content with the amendment.
The seconder?
Absolutely.
I still get to speak to it?
Yes, it's your motion now. So if you're both content...
Councillor Rodrigo for offering.
Good. Well, as you're both content, that will now become your motion. So the motion of Councillors Redshaw and Hoare is the one that's in red, and Councillor Redshaw has the call.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I bring this motion because it's very important that, you know, given we are keen to state that this is a World Heritage Area and the rights of nature are important, the impact of synthetic turf in particular, but other surfaces as well where there are alternatives to PFAS, and I note with acrylic hard courts that there are alternatives, that they're not as huge a problem because with synthetic turf, the field, the plastics get churned up with use, so they're flying around in the atmosphere, so they have an impact on those on the field, including children who are playing on the field, and they then end up in the environment. So there's a lot more consequences from synthetic turf. Hard courts are a slightly different issue and there are suitable alternatives. And I think it's important that we have consideration of where we stand on this issue rather than have to debate it in every single individual circumstance. And we need to think about the fact that not only is it important the surfaces that children are playing on, but it's also important what they're going to have to deal with in the future, which is the disposal of these substances. And that is a huge looming problem. There are no real recycling possibilities at the moment, and it's not a substance we particularly want to recycle because it just keeps these plastics being recirculated into the environment. I think we know a lot about the various impacts, the injuries that can occur with synthetic turf in particular. The Matildas famously said they wouldn't play on it because of the injuries they're likely to incur. And so that's another aspect that Council has also already looked into, the problems with maintaining these surfaces and the issue of bushfire impacting on them, which, you know, one spark can ruin the whole field. So I hope that you will support this motion and that we can get a solid grounding on where we stand with these substances. Thank you.
Just before I take the seconder, just a couple of housekeeping items. If I could take the Executive Officer to point 1. The last 2 words in point 1 are hot days. There's a semicolon. After the semicolon, please insert the word and with a small a. And then I'll take you to the first line of point 2, there's a semicolon. The last word in point 2, the second last word in point 2 is yeah, okay. Make that as a colon. Yep, and I'm now happy. All right, good. Councillor Hoare as seconder. You wish to speak?
Thank you for the offer, but I don't think there's anything more I can add to my colleague's excellent summation of the issues.
Is there any opposition? Councillor Rodrigo, would you like to speak? Call is yours.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I acknowledge and welcome the Green support of the amendment. I also acknowledge the intent of the motion and the principle behind it, which is about protecting our environment from PFAS. My concern with the previous motion was that it adopted a preemptive position on synthetic turf before we'd actually received the report. And while we've had, as referenced by Councillor Redshaw, had a good debate about synthetic turf at Summerhays Park, and I believe after the council's due diligence and investigation of that option, we reached a sensible position on that due to the bushfire risk of the installation of synthetic turf at Winmalee, one of the most bushfire-prone suburbs probably in Australia. We do have to remember that synthetic surfaces currently exist in many forms across the Blue Mountains, including tennis courts, bowling greens, and cricket pitches. And if we were going to consider a ban, we have to consider what kind of impact a ban on synthetic turf synthetic surfaces would have on that multitude of community sports organisations, some of which are looking into expansion of those facilities. We also, I think we have to be clear-eyed as well about the use of PFAS in our community and society. It is used in an extraordinarily wide range of products. Believe it or not, we all know it's used in Teflon, but also in the former RFS uniforms we used to wear. The all orange, they were full of PFAS. Waterproof jackets and carpets. So we use PFAS in a very wide range of applications. PFAS becomes dangerous when it is fragmented and separated from its source product and released into the environment, contaminates the environment, particularly water sources, where then it is then ingested by us and bioaccumulates and it is linked to cancer. That's the problem. That is the problem with PFAS. And of course, there's a high concern about PFAS in our community. But I would note that PFAS, as far as we can understand, came from the use, the liberal use of firefighting foam related to a series of accidents in the 90s. Of course, we know that PFAS and firefighting foam is now banned. But I think it's important to note that the PFAS contamination that we are experiencing in the mountains did not come from the use of synthetic surfaces. It came from the use of firefighting foam, which is now being addressed. So I think we need to, have a clear-eyed approach to understanding if there is a PFAS contamination issues linked to our synthetic surfaces in the Blue Mountains before we adopt a position on it. And that's why I fully support us and Council undertaking a report into this matter, and I commend the amendment to the Chamber.
Yeah, thank you. It's now the motion, and I thank you, Councillor Rodrigo. I also thank Councillors Redshaw and Hoare for coming together on that. I think it's a sensible motion. Anyone else wish to speak? All right, there was one matter before us. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. The next matter, now I'm going to ask, you've all got in front of you the resolution. There's a foreshadowed motion. I want to put that up because we may have the same circumstance. The foreshadowed motion is written and will be moved by Councillor Hollywood as a foreshadowed motion, not an amendment, because it is a different resolution, I acknowledge, whereas the other one was genuinely an amendment of the first. But it is possible that Councillor Redshaw may take it on board and move that wording as her own. If not, happy to put hers up and put this one up afterwards. Essentially, this resolution seeks to do the same thing, to make a strong point about our council's view on the use of excessive force, particularly in the recent Gaza demonstrations in Sydney. What's changed is since the original motion was moved originally as an urgency, but it didn't fit the bill for an urgency, was that we've now got an inquiry underway. And so the new version of the motion takes into account the existence of the inquiry. And because the inquiry is a statutory inquiry and we are statutory office holders, it wasn't thought appropriate for us to make conclusions, which the previous motion did, because there wasn't an inquiry at that time. So reasonably, it's not appropriate for us as a statutory body and us as statutory office holders to make conclusions when another statutory authority is looking into the matter. So I just, again, without sort of debating it, it's just a yes or no. If Councillor Redshaw, and I assume her second would have been Councillor Hall, are happy to take this alternate version on as their motion, I'm content for that. If not, that's fine. We'll put both motions up and we can have both on the public record.
Happy to take the amended version.
No, put them both.
Oh,
Yeah, as much. Oh, yeah, we should have them both on the public record.
right, okay. So that
Oh.
means,
Sorry.
Is that what you want to do? Put both up?
If we could. Thanks.
Perfectly fine. It's up to you.
their motion.
All right, Councillor Redshaw, I might turn your microphone off just because we can hear that conversation. I know that I can do it here, but I've forgotten how. All right, so first what we'll do then is we've got a motion moved by Councillor Redshaw and I assume seconded by Councillor Hoare. And we have a foreshadowed motion standing in the name of Councillor Hollywood, with Councillor Miles foreshadowing his seconding of that. The way we'll move through this procedurally is that we will first deal with the original motion, and if it's defeated, we'll bring on the foreshadowed motion. If it's not defeated and it's passed, the foreshadowed motion falls away. Everyone clear? Right. Councillor Redshaw has the call.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it's really important that we bring this to the attention of our community, as well as hold the government to account for the actions that were taken on the day of this peaceful protest. There were no intentions to disturb the presentation or the event concerning the Israeli Prime Minister on behalf of the protesters. There was no plan, there was no intention, no movement in that direction. And yet police stormed towards the protesters and they were demanding that they move on, but stopping them from moving on in any direction at the same time. And we've heard many accounts. I've heard direct accounts of people being pepper sprayed who were simply trying to work out where they had to go. Police pushing and shoving people. An older woman told me that she was just walking down George Street to Central and two police came along behind her and shoved her, and then shoved her again for no reason. She's just walking to the station. It was an absolutely appalling display of police power. And I'll note that there was also a protest at Lawson outside Susan Templeman's office on the same day, where it was completely peaceful. Police turned up, I believe, at the end of that protest, so there was absolutely no altercation. Nothing happened. Simply a couple of hundred people gathered, made their point known and left peacefully. In Melbourne, there was a huge protest. Police respectfully kept their distance. There was no violence. There was no aggression. There was simply a peaceful protest. And that's what this in Sydney was. It was a peaceful protest and police turned it into a brawl. So I welcome, of course, the inquiry and hopefully it will be independent, but given the sorts of things the Premier has already falsely claimed in Parliament and the sorts of things that the police have been saying, it's concerning.
Could I just ask the councillor stop there? Just misleading Parliament is a very serious matter, and the councillor has accused the Premier publicly on the public record of misleading Parliament. I'd ask that comment was withdrawn, because that is, in my view, a serious act of disorder and not appropriate. So there's been no finding that the Premier's done that. So I would ask if just those comments could be formally withdrawn.
So the Premier made a comment, then denied that he made the comment, and I've seen recordings
No,
of
no,
both.
you don't get to debate me. I'm asking, you've essentially accused the Premier of New South Wales of misleading Parliament. All I would ask you to do is just withdraw those
Okay,
words.
I'll withdraw that comment.
Thank
But I
you.
do think that the Premier has questions to answer. The police weren't acting alone, and they weren't acting according to peaceful protest. So there's a great deal to be answered, not just by the police and their actions. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconder wish to speak?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Look, I have to say one of the reasons I got involved in politics as a young boy of 13 was seeing, not firsthand because I was too good and obeyed my parents' directions, not to attend Springbok Rugby Tour protests that occurred throughout New Zealand, but seeing in the media the police using the PR-14 batons to batter protesters' heads, to spill blood on the streets of the capital city in Wellington. It just completely changed my understanding of the use of coercive force by the state, and set me on a path of well, let's say political radicalisation. And I think the French bombing the Rainbow Warrior a couple of years later also helped, but with the knowledge of the CIA, but who didn't bother telling our government or the Australian government either. But that aside, I do think that what we saw in Sydney on that day, it was an absolutely historic event that has badly shaken social cohesion and the faith that our citizens should hold the police in. It puts me in a very difficult position as someone who works regularly with the police in the course of my emergency services duties. And, fortunately, I'm able to separate those feelings and those understandings. I'm able to. It has not yet undermined my ability to work operationally with police, but it is corrosive. It's corrosive of the social trust that holds our country together to see such an excessive use of police powers. And Mr. Mayor, I'm very happy to take on board your concerns that we as a statutory body of elected officers can't be predetermining the outcome of inquiries of other statutory bodies who are thankfully investigating these matters. But I do think that the motion that's proposed in as a substitute for the one we are debating now is a little bit underwhelming, and it has the unfortunate effect of helping the government save face when we really should be holding them to account. And I just don't think that it's going too far for us to put on the public record that the council does affirm the rights to peaceful protest, to freedom of assembly, freedom of belief and religious observance, that these are fundamental democratic freedoms and essential pillars of social cohesion in a multicultural society. I really would hope that tonight we can make that statement of commitment, of the importance of these freedoms in our democratic society. I don't think we're going too far to recognise the targeting and mistreatment of prayer groups. I mean, we all saw it. Faith-based gatherings, and regardless of political belief, that does pose a serious threat to community harmony, to mutual respect and public confidence in the impartial application of the law. And I don't think it's going too far for our council to condemn the use of excessive force, intimidation, kettling and collective punishment tactics by police against protesters, faith groups, observers and bystanders, noting that such practices escalate tensions and actively undermine social cohesion. I think it's important that we do that, and I'll be sad, frankly, if we can't bring ourselves to pass to make that commitment tonight. I also think it's important that we do hold the Premier to account, and we issue a call to action. That we don't just leave it up to the authorities. I think it's entirely within our right as elected representatives of our community, to call on the Premier of New South Wales to repeal the laws that currently restrict peaceful protest by New South Wales citizens, to review the guidelines on police management of protests, to ensure independent and transparent investigations of all reported incidents, including those involving the prayer groups and elected representatives, and that these should be truly independent. We should no longer have police investigating police. We need to move beyond that to be able to uphold the rule of law. We need to guarantee accountability where misconduct is established, and we need to reaffirm that the government needs to reaffirm its commitment to civil liberties, religious freedom and social cohesion. I hope that I'm sad that we can't do that tonight.
Just got a question for the mover and seconder. You've said that council writes under the signature of the mayor. It would be unlawful for me to write such a letter because it would preempt a statutory inquiry, which I can't do as a statutory office holder. The other problem is that the CEO is a statutory office holder. She also can't lawfully sign that letter. So given that I can't sign it, who that's not a statutory office holder would sign it?
Well, I would hope that it could be amended to include the things I've referred to without, as I've acknowledged in my remarks, that does not contravene.
Well, there's not an amendment on the table. There's one motion. And you've said under the signature of the mayor, I can't legally sign that letter, nor can the GM CEO, because we're statutory office holders and this resolution preempts a statutory inquiry. So my question to you both is, who will sign it that's not a statutory office holder?
My response would be, let's just change the letter so it does not preempt a statutory inquiry, but still makes the commitments of principle and the recommendations for action that I think is entirely
As there's no amendment on the table, I'll take it that there's no answer as to who can sign it. And I'll just note that actually no one can sign such a letter. All right, there's any further speeches on this item? No? I'll put it. All those in favour? Councillors Hoare and Redshaw, all those against? The rest, I declare it lost. I'll pull forward now the foreshadowed motion standing in the names of Councillor Hollywood as mover, Councillor Miles as seconder. Councillor Hollywood has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, we've already heard from Councillor Redshaw and Councillor Hoare the reasons for bringing forward this motion, and the reason that we have brought forward a foreshadowed motion and voted down the previous motion is that the previous motion really, and I'm hearing the words of Councillor Rodrigo previously, the actual motion preempts the outcomes of the Law Enforcement Conduct Commission's inquiry. We've also heard some comments tonight that are in fact quite concerning and misleading. One about the Premier making false statements, but the other was that the Commission is police investigating police. This is actually not the case for the Law Enforcement Conduct Commission. So the motion that we've just voted down makes a number of claims that appear to preempt the outcomes of the inquiry. So, I beg your pardon?
Councillor Hoare, don't interject, don't speak while the other councillor is speaking. Councillor Hollywood has the call.
Thank you. And you can see that through the motion that it acknowledges the inquiry, but then makes a whole lot of calls that we need to make here as a council. Now, we are not privy to the investigation. We saw very disturbing visual aids, visual representations, I guess, of what took place on that night. And I think many in the community were concerned. But what we don't know, and that's what the purpose of the investigation is about, is what led to that situation. And we do know that, and I mean this is a matter of fact, that there was an alternative place proposed by the police for the demonstration to take place, and that was at Hyde Park, not at Town Hall. And the organisers chose to take for the rally to take place at Town Hall. So there will be a whole lot of matters that we're not privy to on the video that have led to that outcome. We need to get to the bottom of this as a state. It's not actually our role as a council to get to the bottom of it, but we can make our voice heard, that we are concerned about the excessive use of force that may have been used by the police officers. So I think point 2 is particularly important in terms of taking forward the messages that we've heard within the community of their concerns of what took place. But we do need to let the Law Enforcement Conduct Commission investigate this matter and for the findings to be made public so that we can all understand and hopefully ensure that this never happens again in our country. Thank you.
Just a slight change. Trish's name is Trish Doyle, not Trish Doyle. It's been pointed out to me by one eagle-eyed councillor. Thank you, Councillor Rodrigo. Thank you, Councillor Hollywood. Were you complete? Yeah, thank you. Councillor Miles, you're the seconder. Would you be content to yield to me? Well, would you take the chair?
I feel like I need to stand up. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You have the call.
Thank you. I actually want to place on the public record that I support the sentiment in both motions. And I've made public comment around how disturbed I was by what I saw on that day. To my mind, point 2 is important. Point 2 refers specifically to excessive force, intimidation, kettling, and collective punishment tactics that may have been used by New South Wales Police on that day. And the letter that will be written here, which will be written under my signature, as it should be, because it's a very political matter, will deal specifically with those issues and our condemnation, and note the words, condemns the use of excessive force, any use of excessive force. This resolution is quite strong. I agree utterly with the sentiment of the previous. The issue is more of a technical one, and that is that we're a statutory authority, we're all statutory office holders, and there is a statutory body dealing with this matter right now, and it would be legally inappropriate for us to in any way cut across that evidence-based process. So what we will do is speak in higher terms about our concerns, about the use of excessive force, intimidation, kettling and collective punishment tactics, and express those not just to the local member, but also to the Premier and the Minister for Police. This is actually a strong stand that we are taking, but it's a stand that's legally defensible, and that's the only difference between the two resolutions. So I don't cavil with the sentiment at all in the resolution of Councillors Redshaw and Hoare. I join with them in holding the same concerns and the same horror that they no doubt held when they saw what happened. I also note the points raised by Councillor Hollywood, all of which were valid points about not only what happened on the day, but about the procedural reasons for the motion being couched in these terms. Respectfully, I think this resolution deserves unanimous support. It shouldn't be one that's divided on, because I think our council should make a unanimous submission to government at the highest level about our concerns in relation to the elements that I've just mentioned. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll take the chair.
Thank you, Councillor Greenhill.
Right. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes. Councillor Redshaw.
Thank you, and thank you for your alternative wording, Deputy Mayor. I note that it does take into account a number of the points that were made in the original, and it's perhaps point 1, A to G that are particularly concerning. But I would like to just respond to your comment that the protest was offered an alternative venue or, place to protest. I don't think that's any reason to for the police to take the actions that they did. The fact that the site remained town hall is no excuse for the police's behaviour. So I just want to make that point, and that the right to protest is a foundation of democracy, and particularly for peaceful protest, and that should be supported by our government and our forces. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Redshaw. Anything further? Then there's one matter before us. It is the motion standing in the names of Councillors Hollywood and Miles. I'll put it all those in favour. Against, declare it carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Councillor Miles, a great and noted long-term defender of protest action, seconding that motion. I have one matter of urgency standing in the name of Councillor Hollywood. I determined that the matter is urgent because the processes are moving forward. It's moved Councillor Hollywood, second to Councillor West. As is my normal practice with urgency motions, I'll only take one speaker unless there's a speaker in opposition. Councillor Hollywood has the call.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I realise that this is quite a bit to get one's head around, but what we have before us is a development application that will not come to this council. Everybody knows that, but it has been lodged with the council, but it will be assessed by a planning panel under the New South Wales legislation. So it won't come to this governing body. But it's a really significant development application, I think it's nearly $53 million worth of housing. And very much like the development at Narrowneck, which has actually obtained an extraordinary amount of public attention. This one is potentially just as significant, but it's obviously not going, because it's not state significant, it's not probably going to attract as much attention. However, I believe, as the governing body, do need to take a stand on this, and I'll spell out the reasons as simply as I can. In the past, when we could deal with DAs, we would have been given a very thorough briefing by staff, and we would be able to look at our LEP, etc., etc. So I'm just going to try and concertina this to say that under our current LEP that we approved, this was zoned for private recreation. It's a golf course, and it's a golf course that is the headwaters for the Jamison Creek. It's also a major part of the Jamison Creek catchment. And we heard previous people talking about other catchments that are significant across the Blue Mountains. This catchment is particularly significant because it takes feeds the water for the Jamison Creek, which has our beloved Wentworth Falls Lake, goes down the back of houses through to the Charles Darwin Walk, and then the water flows over the magnificent Wentworth Falls, and which is home to an endangered species that's as old as the dinosaurs, the mountain dwarf pine. So this is a significant area that's with water flowing into our national park and the World Heritage Area. But this is also an area that is mapped as flood prone because it is the headwaters of the Jamison Creek. And I believe that, you know, if we were looking at this without it being a golf course, this would have been protected bushland, very much like we see across the way in Wentworth Falls at Central Park. People knew not to build on it 100 years ago, and now we're seeing a proposal to build on this flood-prone land. I have spent, as a councillor, many hours visiting residents already that live around the golf course for flooding issues. I have CSRs in right now about flooding issues exactly opposite where the part of the development is proposed. We get flooding complaints on Waratah Road on the western end. You cannot engineer your way out of floodwaters. We know that. So I'm asking you tonight, based on this principle, that we express as the governing body our opposition to this development, because we all stood on platforms of protecting our environment through our strong planning instruments, and in particular our LEP. What has happened is that the state government, SEP, is overriding our LEP and allowing a provision for this development to be considered. So we've got the state government, again, overriding our local environment plan that we developed here in consultation with our community. I hope you will support this motion.
Is there any opposition to this? There isn't. Councillor Hoare indicates opposition. Do you want to speak in opposition? Just indicating opposition. All right. I just by way of guidance to the councillors and not entering the debate, one of the things I just want to draw your attention to, which I think supports the resolution, is that the community can't determine between submissions written by the staff and the governing body. Now, we saw this with Woolworths development, Springwood, where I was constantly in the media, in the local paper, as well as on Facebook, saying no. The utterances of our operational staff, Councillor Hollywood, are not the utterances of the elected members, and the community can't tell often the difference between the two. They have a hard enough time telling the difference between us and the state government. I have spent a quarter of a century saying publicly that the highway is not a council road, but still people don't get it. And I would have thought it's a reasonably simple concept. A main road would be with the State Department that covers main roads, but no. This is an even harder thing for people to, and I understand that. People think roads rates rubbish, I think council, so I get it. It may to us seem obvious, it's not to community. This is even more the case where you've got one arm of council, the operational arm, that will input into a state government process with reports that will say things. Then you've got the political arm of council that actually has no role in those utterances. None at all. We don't get a say. We're not even consulted. So it's important, I think, for the governing body's reputation for us to be very clear and be able to show the community that any representations by our staff are proper and appropriate, coming from professional officers, exercising their professional advice and discretion, which is proper and right, but that may contrast with the philosophical views of the governing body. And remember, our staff are confined in their commentary to the legislation. So the fact that legislation may or may not override our local environment plan means the staff are confined in their comments to what the law requires them to comment on. Our staff don't have the discretion to step outside their statutory obligation in this regard. But the fact that we're actually not involved in the process means that we can. And I think the passage of this resolution will allow particularly the Ward 2 councillors to draw a distinction between the views of the governing body, which are actually irrelevant to the process, and the views of our professional staff, which are not personal, political or philosophical views. They are just views that they have to express within the confines of the statute. So for that reason, I think it's probably a good thing if this passes in terms of the public debate that will follow. There's one matter before us. I'll put it. All those in favour? Against? I declare it carried unanimously. There is no further business to transact. Executive Business Director. Are you Director now? Yeah. Executive Business Manager, all right. There's no further business to transact. Therefore, I'll take a motion to close the meeting. It's moved Councillor Fell, seconded Councillor West. All those in favour of closing the meeting? First hand up was Councillor Barkham. All those in favour are unanimous. Declare it carried and bid you all a fond good night.